Well, you've got the gear, Gail, but I've got the Supermodels. Welcome to our exclusive preview of all that's hot and sexy on two wheels.
But it's not what they look like that counts, it's what they're like to ride. And I've got 100,000 pounds of machines here just waiting for me to take them out on the test track and give them a good thrashing.
The UK may have lost out on the car show this year, but the bikes are back in force. With over 250 exhibitors in 6 halls here in the Birmingham National Exhibition Centre, this year's bike show is bigger and better than ever. Over 10 days, up to 250,000 people are expected through the turnstiles. They'll be able to watch shows, pick up bargains and try out scooters. But most of all, they'll be drooling over radical new designs. It's almost as though the motorcycle's millennium has started a year late.
Well, if you wanted any proof that motorcycle design has finally arrived in the 21st century, look no further than Ducati. This is the Multistrada, the brainchild of legendary stylist Pierre Terreblanche, who believes he's created a whole new concept of motorcycle design. This is the point at which sports bikes and practical bikes meet. There are some lovely design touches, like putting a fuel tank underneath the seat, liberating this space here underneath the tank. You can put your waterproofs in there, or maybe even your sandwiches. And what about the looks? Well, the rear end is a peach, and the front, you decide for yourself. Look out for one on a Strada near you from 2003.
But while Ducati claimed to have invented a brand new concept with the Multistrada, the truth is that Yamaha actually got there first. Fans of the old TDM 850, claimed it was the only bike you'd ever need. Whether it was the only bike you'd ever wanted was a different matter. Well, Yamaha have given the bike a thorough makeover. The latest version gets a larger 900cc engine, a totally new alloy frame and a new suspension, which promises a lighter, crisper ride.
Way back when, Suzuki had a bike called the TL1000, which had a notorious reputation. It was a bit unstable, and so were most of its riders. But the engine was a peach. Suzuki have taken it and put it into something new. Dyslexics beware. This is the V-Strom. It's their take on the monster trailer theme. 205 kilos dry, 140 miles an hour, but if you want to take it on the dirt, you're going to have to be a real man, because it's got road tyres. But keep it on the tarmac, and it should have a massive on-road presence.
But if it's presence that you're after, there is only one. Harley-Davidson's jaw-dropping V-Road. Just when the Japanese thought they'd cracked what it takes to make a half-decent cruiser, Harley went and changed the rules. For around £14,000, the V-Rod is a stunning piece of automotive modern art. When Pulling Power first got a ride earlier this year, we were bowled over by the new water-cooled engine, which delivers the knockout punch of a 1000cc sports bike. This is one hog that won't be left at the lights.
But Harley-Davidson haven't got it all their own way. The Japanese too are making their own performance cruisers. This is Kawasaki's Mean Streak. It might have the daftest name in motorcycling, but what's it like to ride? Let's find out. Performance cruiser? It sounds like a contradiction in terms, but these could well be the next big thing. But don't get too carried away with the throttle, because at the end of that straight, there's always a bend. And that's where chrome meets tarmac.
Oh, and there's the ground clearance problem. It will not go around the corner any faster than that. Well, this is not at all mean, this bike. It's a big softie, really. The engine's very friendly and benign. There's a nice spread of torque. The handling is very stable and secure, but it doesn't turn very quickly, which is probably just as well with that ground clearance problem.
America's appetite for this type of bike is enormous. So even a small slice of this very big pie means significant numbers, which is why Triumph has built the Bonneville America.
Well, this is a bike I really wanted to like. I think the styling is spot on. It's got the right American look to it with the authenticity of the parallel twin as well. And it's different in cruisers in that respect. We haven't got a V-twin. The suspension works really well, but the engine just hasn't got the oomph.
Alternatively, Honda's VTX is at the other end of the scale with a whopping 1800cc. The last time I saw something this big, it had Kate Winslet on the bow.
This bike is, I think, the biggest cruiser I've ever ridden. It's huge. It's got the biggest pistons Honda's ever made. This is the surefire, easy way to make a cruiser that's going to sell. And there's just so much grunt.
Well, grunt's one thing, but performance is quite another. This is the new Yamaha R1. Now, a few years ago, this would undoubtedly have been the star of the show, the machine that any red-blooded biker would flock to see. But not anymore. The evidence is mounting that Britain's love affair with high-performance bikes is coming to an end, sadly, thanks to speed cameras and spiralling insurance costs, which are a real shame because this new R1 is a peach. I mean, it would sell just on its looks alone, but the performance is staggering. You could win the TT riding this thing, and it has this year's must-have accessory, an LED rear light. Honda too is hoping for pole position with the 2002 Fireblade. Less weight, more power and sharper looks are all designed to put the Blade ahead of the pack. Whether they've done enough in this fiercely fought division still remains to be seen.
And this is the bike they're all gunning for. Suzuki's fabulous GSX-R 1000. It's the big daddy of the super sport class. For a start, it is wickedly, insanely fast. It has huge power, dollops right across the rev range. It brakes so hard it makes your nose bleed, and the handling just takes your breath away. 1 year ago, this was a giant leap forward, and now Honda and Yamaha really have their work cut out to match the storming pace of the GSX-R.
If insurance premiums are taming the sports bikes, then the foot and mouth crisis nearly killed off the market for dirt bikes. Small wonder that manufacturers have decided to fight back.
Sensible? No. Practical? Hardly. But Supermoto is the fastest growing class that there is at the moment. And it's sports bike riders and lovers like this who are switching over to them just for the sheer fun of riding the things. They're wicked. It's completely mad and totally pointless, but everybody loves them.
Well, Supermotos make fantastic city bikes. They're brilliant for beating the traffic. But as you can see, they're somewhat lacking in weather protection. Nevertheless, as our beloved Prime Minister would say, there is a third way. The concept's straightforward. Take the power and handling of a motorbike and combine it with the fun and practicality of a scoot. The result? Well, something like this, the Honda Silverwing. Powered by a 582cc twin, it has the speed and comfort to make light work of an intercity commute. Earlier in the year, I rode this back-to-back with the 500cc Yamaha T-Max, and I was seriously impressed. Of the two, I preferred the T-Max for its sportier ride and its younger image, and in this new sector of the market, it's definitely the class leader. But at around £6,000, both scooters cost about the same as a small car, which is bound to restrict their appeal.
Not to be left out, Suzuki, the firm who started this whole craze off with the Bergman, has introduced two new engines for 2001. The 650 should see it leapfrog those upstarts from Yamaha and Honda, but for those just about to dip their toe into this market, a Lerner legal 125cc will also be on the road soon. Well, even scooter novices are catered for. Here at the Try a Bike arena, you can get a 15-minute trial with supervision on a bike, and you can decide whether or not you're cut out for a life on two wheels. There's a whole range of 50cc models to choose from, and what's more, it's completely free. And then if you already own a full driving licence, there's nothing to stop you browsing some of the stands and choosing yourself a nice little 50cc scooter.
But you don't have to have a scooter, you can have a bike as well. Prices start around £1,200, right up to £3,000 for the top models. Take this one, new for this year from Kymco. It's called the Hipster. Now, the performance might not be all that startling from this Lerner legal roadster, but if you squint your eyes up, it actually looks pretty chunky. To ride something like this, you've got to be over 17 years old, and you also must take something called a CBT, or compulsory basic training. The course takes about a day of your time and should cost around £80. Now, your CBT certificate lasts for up to 2 years, during which time you're sure to want to take your test. And after that, the sky's the limit.
Well, even those too young for the roads will find plenty here to amuse them. Everything from the latest video games to a creche to give mum and dad a bit of freedom. So how about starting them off young? Here we go. This company has a whole range of kit to fit children. And the clever part is that once they've outgrown their kit, they can be part exchanged for a bigger size. And once they've been safely equipped, put your helmet on. I'm sure there's a whole range of manufacturers out there who'd be willing to sell them a pint-sized bike. Well, if you want to bring the kids along to the bike show, under 10s who are accompanied by an adult will get in for free. And who knows, you may have a young Carl or Carla Fogarty on your hands. Well, that's it for this part, but join us after the break when we'll be lifting the covers on a brand new concept bike, and we'll have the first ever road test of Honda's eagerly awaited all brand new VFR. Do you think my bum would look big in that?
Pulling power at the International Motorcycle and Scooter Show, sponsored by gettheedge.co.uk.
One thing that you notice when you wander around the show is that there seems to be a bike now for every single niche. From superbikes to super scooters, from supermoto to super tourers. But what if there was a bike that did it all? Now, wouldn't that be neat? Well, a few weeks ago, Pulling Power was invited down to a secret location just outside Luton for a special behind-the-scenes look at what could be the future of motorcycling. What we saw looked amazing, but we were sworn to secrecy. Well, now it's time for me to unveil this remarkable machine. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the G-Racer. AKA Design, the company behind the motorcycle, claim that the G-Racer will be able to take its rider anywhere in the world, even over the most extreme terrain. To help it do this, the bike is totally adjustable, from the suspension, which can vary the ground clearance, to the riding position. Just don't forget your spanners. It also features a GPS satellite navigational system and, of course, mobile internet connections. Oh, and there's also front and rear cameras. Wanna buy one? Fancy one of them? Well, that's just tough, because sadly, it's just a concept. Nice try, though.
Well, back here on planet Earth, there is one bike which can justifiably claim to be the bike for all seasons. This is the first opportunity that people in the UK have had to see the new Honda VFR. And over the years, this badge has become so famous that VFR is almost a brand in itself. Cutting-edge chassis design married to a 800cc V4 power plant.
And this year, the engine gets Honda's unique VTEC system. What does it do? Well, it changes the number of valves used according to the revs, which means increased performance and better fuel efficiency. Does it work? Oh yes. This is its first TV ride and it's just superb. The handling's secure, the suspension works beautifully, and the link brakes are much improved. But the best thing of all is the exhaust note. When that VTEC engine hits 7,000 RPM, its character changes completely. Listen to that, it's gorgeous. At around £8,000, it ain't cheap, but then real class never was.
Where the VFR is designed to dominate the road, Honda's SP2 is made to dominate the track. Visually, you'd be hard-pressed to spot the changes from the previous SP1, but under the skin there's been a whole host of modifications, particularly to the fuel injection system, to give it a smoother ride.
Well, for some people, the Ducatis are like the Ferrari of the bike world, and like their Italian cousins, their timeless, gorgeous looks are absolutely amazing. Take the 998. Like the SP2, the new Ducati is almost identical to its predecessor. But like the Honda, it's undergone a lot of changes underneath the plastic to make it powerful and faster. The classic looks, though, are barely unchanged from the original 916, which began development nearly 12 years ago. Since then, Ducati have built a formidable reputation for these bikes on the track, and these machines still leave most of their Far Eastern rivals standing in the desirability stakes.
Surprisingly, Aprilia's RSV Miele was used by Ducati as the benchmark for V-twin user-friendliness. But it's easy to see why. It has a Superbike's performance, but even your grandma could ride it. It's just amazing what Aprilia's done. 10 years ago, they were making scooters and 125s, and now they're making top superbikes. They've shown they've got the technology and the imagination, and it's not over yet.
And here's Aprilia's latest bike, the Blue Marlin. Ultra light, ultra smart, and no doubt ultra fast. A cafe racer for the 21st century. With Aprilia's world-beating RSB engine, this bike has winner written all over it. Still only a concept, but if enough of you out there say you like it, Aprilia will put it into production. So, what are you waiting for? Well, from one radical-looking bike that you can't buy to one that you can, this is the Buell Firebolt. There's so much to talk about, so many innovations with this bike. First of all, look at the front forks, incredibly steep angle. Now, this thing's also been to Weight Watchers. They're making savings everywhere. They keep the fuel, would you believe, inside the frame. The oil is kept inside the rear swinging arm. And check out those brakes, the first ever to be rim-mounted on any production bike.
Yamaha Bulldog is the V-twin entry from Yamaha into the muscle bike market. The problem is the V-twin comes from a cruiser, and it really does feel like that. It doesn't want to rev very much. It hasn't got a great deal of power anywhere across the rev range, and to compound the problem, the handling's pretty soft and mushy as well. The bike looks the part, but really this is more poodle than bulldog.
Even in pink, no one would accuse Triumph Speed Triple of being a poodle. For 2002, it gets even more power, better brakes and neater instruments. If you want pretty, buy Italian. If you want beef, buy British. Yamaha promised so much with the Phaser 1000, but it never really delivered. What we thought we were getting was an R1-inspired hooligan bike for $6,000. In the end, it was over 8, and it was all a bit soft. Having said that, it does make a terrific all-rounder. But expect some discounts with the arrival of this.
The Hornet is Honda's take on the theme of fitting a Superbike engine into a naked muscle bike chassis. The motor comes from the Fireblade. It's the 98 Fireblade engine. It's detuned to have more torque at the expense of top-end power. The Phaser beats it on top-end power, but the Honda beats it, crucially, on price. It's $2,000 cheaper, and it's a nice, live, agile-handling bike that really sounds good too.
Honda might be laughing all the way to the bank with this new 900 Hornet, but its little brother is going to have a far tougher ride in the hard-fought budget 600 class. Especially now Yamaha have given its arch-rival, the top-selling Phaser 600, a well-deserved makeover. Changes for 2002 are mainly cosmetic, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
You might have thought Kawasaki would have taken the same approach with the ever-popular ZX6R, but this year they've taken the unusual step of enlarging the engine capacity beyond the normal 600cc limit to 636. That might not seem much, but in this ultra-competitive class, those extra cubes could just give it the edge.
Famous name, but not so famous bike. You'd have to have a very long memory to remember the last big bike that Gilera produced, so they're taking a huge risk in launching this today, the 600cc Supersport. Trick bits? Well, it's got an aluminium and titanium chassis, it's got a combined speedo and rev counter, and the power comes from a GSXR 600 motor. So, you fancy one? Well, I'm afraid it's not going to be on sale until 2003.
But this is what Gilera is better known for, scooters. And the ice lives up to its name. It is just so cool. And not only that, it proves you can have just as much fun with 50cc. And Gilera's not alone. Here are 3 of the coolest scooters to ever hit the streets. From the ever-popular Peugeot Speedfight to the Malaguti Phantom, in this class there's only one rule. Make them hip and make them trendy. And make them tough. Because these scoots are ridden by the world's toughest consumers. Teenagers.
Now, if you're a policeman, a paramedic, or a motorway patrol rider, pay attention, because this is the bike you're going to be riding next year. Honda's Pan-European is considered by many to be the definitive long-distance touring bike, and amazingly, this is the first full revamp it's had since its launch 12 years ago. Bigger engine, bigger touring range, and much sharper looks are all designed to keep the Pan on top. Blues and twos are entirely optional.
The Pan-European used to have everything its own way, but not anymore. There's serious competition now, including the FJR 1300 from Yamaha. This, amazingly, is Yamaha's first full-on tourer for 2 decades, and they've done a great job. The brakes are good, it handles well, and it's a bike that's really great fun to chuck around down a twisty road when you finally get where you're going. Now here's a surprise. This is a BMW. That's an old man's bike, isn't it? And they're dull and boring. And it's a touring bike. But hey, this is really good fun. This bike is something you can really chuck around and have a great time on. It also happens to be extremely comfortable. It's got character and, well, it's got a sort of individual style. I wouldn't call it pretty, but it stands out. I like this. I don't think I'm getting too old either.
Well, Kevin, either you're getting older or BMW are getting younger. But if any further proof were needed of BMW's fresh approach, then this is it, the F650 CS. It's a great new design of what is the ultimate commuter bike. Very comfortable riding position, but the great innovation for me is this tank recess. Perfect for keeping a spare helmet, a tank bag, or even a radio. Terry Wogan in the mornings, anybody?
One of the most prominent features of this year's show is the Fast catwalk, which is going to be used to persuade you that you really do need to spend £1,200 on brand new leathers. This bike show is crammed full of clothing shacks, packed with seductively priced gear. Now, not everything here is the bargain it might first seem, but if you're smart, you'll be able to pick up some of last year's designs at some seriously cheap prices. If you're buying a helmet, it must have the BSA kite mark and preferably the ACU Motorsport recommendation. And one final point, make sure that it's unmarked, because helmets damage easily.
Well, that's it from here. It's been a fantastic show. And look who's joined us from the cold.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've had a brilliant day. I'm a bit saddle sore, but it's been really good.
Well, Kevin, we've got one more bike for you to try, but we're going to join you, so it's not so bad. And I've got an even better idea. I think first one past the finish line.